Moving forward is Josh Downs at 41% rostered. Now, if we knew that Joe Flacco was going to start quarterback the rest of the season, I'd say Josh Downs is somebody I'd put $100 of my fab on. I'd make sure to go get him. It's just the uncertainty, and really more so likelihood that Anthony Richardson will play far more games moving forward than Joe Flacco. But man, does Downs look good, and especially when Flacco is the one feeding him the rock. He comes off a career-high 9 catches on 12 targets, 69 yards. Not insane, but the 12 targets now make it a 28%, 32%, and 27% target share across the past 3 games. He's put up 22 and 15.9 fantasy points with Joe Flacco under center, and we just saw how explosive this passing game can be when they have an actual arm. And of course, there's just one of the best arm, most cannon-like arms in the NFL, but an accurate arm that can deliver the mail. It was a thing of beauty here for Josh Downs. So it's tough to go too high on him because we do know, again, that Richardson is likely the one to be under center for the majority of the year. But very, very impressive nonetheless. Volume hogging here from Josh Downs. Just a great player getting open at will. I did want to mention Alec Pierce, though, lesser owned 20%. He's actually been the more Anthony Richardson proof guy in this wide receiver core. This last week, though, even with Flacco, 3 catches, 134 yards, and a touchdown, getting open at will deep down the field. We've seen him now, Alec Pierce, 20 and 14.1 in weeks 1 and 2, and 20.9 this last week. He's probably the most up and down boomer bust, not probably, definitely, of this wide receiver core, but he's shown the highest ceiling by a mile as well. If you have him in best ball somehow, he's been an absolute godsend. And I know that we just saw a season-high 7 targets go to A.D. Mitchell this last week, but we still had Alec Pierce playing 80% of the routes, down from his 95%, but still the clear-cut number 3 on this team. 24% of the routes for A.D. Mitchell, not nearly as impressive. So I do love what I'm seeing from Alec Pierce, and he does seem like the guy that can continue to get it done, whether it's Richardson or Flacco under center. Moving forward, Keon Coleman, the rookie wide receiver, got dropped by a lot of leaguers out there. It might get dropped again, given that he just had 1 catch on Sunday, but he made it really count. 49 yards and a touchdown. Team high 5 targets as well for Keon Coleman with no Khalil Shakir. Definitely concerning that, again, the guy did not ultimately do much more damage on those 5 targets. You'd love to see him really step up with Khalil Shakir, who is dominating in terms of the team high in targets, target share, yardage share. You'd hope to see a little more from Coleman, but that 49-yard touchdown was an impressive play, breaking a tackle, showing more speed than I think a lot of people give him credit for. And now he has multiple catches on the season, 4 touchdowns, and 2 in his last 3 games. So maybe he's just catching a little fire here. I know that I love that untapped upside this time of year. Now, if you need someone you can plug into your lineup, though, I would lean closer to Jalen Tolbert, who's definitely a better bet for right now production, whereas Keon Coleman's more so playing for the back end of your season. Tolbert, though, 8% roster. He stepped up huge on Sunday. 10 targets, team high. 7 catches, team high. 87 yards, also a team high. And he scored, ultimately racking up nearly 20 half PPR fantasy points. He now has, Jalen Tolbert, 11 or more half PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. With Brandon Cooks unavailable, this does not feel overly fluky either. Really, we talked all preseason. One of my favorite sleepers was Jalen Tolbert, the backyard connection. Hey, let's go play football at Dak's house is really what they did. And Dak even said, anyone who's worked this long with me in the offseason always has a big year. That guy this season is Jalen Tolbert, and we're seeing that connection really shining through here. Against a good Steelers defense, we did see Tolbert be the most dangerous weapon here for the Cowboys. Now, I know, again, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb. 9 out of 10 weeks. Jake Ferguson's probably going to outproduce him almost any given week. But this was Tolbert's week, and I do think as the clear number 2 wide receiver, at least, he's going to have some big days. This was the number 1 passing attack of last year. It's looking like they have not much else to do in 2024. Last couple wide receivers are Romeo Doubs, 33%, dropped in a ton of leagues after his suspension, which has been lifted according to Jeremy Fowler. They had a great meeting with Matt LaFleur and Romeo Doubs. They hashed it all out. They got they kind of hugged it out, and now they're back here. I love they were able to figure this out. Because remember, Romeo Doubs, he led this team in routes for all the first 3 weeks of the year. He was kind of that sacrificial X that Harmon likes to call him. But we've seen some huge games out of the guy too. Don't look much further than the playoffs just a little while ago. And so Romeo Doubs, we just saw Dontavian Wicks, who I know I was hyping up last week. I still believe in the guy, 7 targets. I think he's an elite talent, an elite separator, great at getting open, but he's got a case of the butter hands right now. So Romeo Doubs could potentially just step right back in to being that number 1 route runner, that number 1 guy, more reliable at this point, at least, despite being far less efficient and far less explosive. Definitely still, though, just any piece of a meaningful passing attack like the Packers, all it takes is one other injury for him to then ascend with Romeo Doubs. I like the guy, like the player. Always been a little underrated in my opinion. And so I'm taking a piece of the Packers passing game, no doubt about it, out there in a ton of leagues. I did want to mention Rashod Bateman, too. Speaking of getting pieces of explosive offenses, he's only behind right now Zay Flowers in route share and right up there in number 2 in target share on this team as well. Is Rashod Bateman just 9% rostered? Calls in 4 of his 8 targets, 58 yards and a score in that big win against the Bengals. What a fun game that was. But you just love to see this shootout style games. The offense, this defense for the Ravens, giving up the most 20-plus yard pass plays. So it's creating these run and gun scenarios, and we're seeing Lamar rise to the occasion. So you love to see it. He is now, Bateman had 10-plus scores and 10-plus points in 2 of his last 3 games, and he gets a nice matchup coming up here against the Commanders, who I know the Browns couldn't do anything against him, but I'm not going to hold that against anybody. The Commanders still stink, one of the worst secondaries in the league, and so I do think that's going to be a fun game to target. If you need a streamer right now, Bateman is a phenomenal option for Week 6. Last couple names here. These are more like $1 to $2 at most. Maybe you wake up in the morning and see if nobody picked them up. But I wanted to throw out Jordan Whittington. Now, if we knew that Puka and Kupp were going to be out longer, we had a clear timeline on them, and it was another 5 to 6 weeks, I'd say Whittington would be top 5 on this list. He has definitely secured that immediate slide into the layup style role. I mean, they were having him run routes like being motion in the backfield and then cut up through the A gap. They're finding ways to get him open, and those mismatches we always see designed for Kupp, and then last year Puka as well. 10 targets, 7 catches, 89 yards, and that's after leaving in the third quarter. This guy was on pace for a monster day and already had a very solid effort. This is a week after seeing 8 targets in that layup role after Matthew Stafford came out and said, we really like what we're seeing from Whittington. He's earned his keep here with the squad. All things are trending right for him, but I just think with the bye week this week, you can't really use him. You can't use him at all. And then it does seem likely that at least one of Kupp and Puka will return this coming week, all making Whittington a nice flash in the pan, great streamer for you, and a nice handcuff. One of the few guys that truly I do think is worth handcuffing, kind of like Juwan Jennings there with the 49ers. But you might just, in these bye week hell type of weeks, it might be tough to hold on to him. But he is impressive. I am a big fan of what I'm seeing. It's hard not to shout out Darius Slayton with 11 targets, 8 catches, 122 yards, and a TD. Definitely think this is more of a flash in the pan, one-hit wonder type of game, but we've seen him blow up in the past. Good reminder of what he's capable of with Malik Neighbors out, and maybe he does force his way onto the field a bit more, and if Neighbors does have to miss any more time, whether this week or in the future, good to know that Darius Slayton can walk right in and be the captain at any given moment. We've seen that with him in the past. The last 2 receivers I wanted to mention were Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk, kind of just piggybacking on the idea that what if Drake May is more impressive than we all think. I cannot wait to see what he does as a Pats fan, even though I am also terrified behind that offensive line. But I do think all the reports were him and Jalen Polk. Just a beautiful rapport, beautiful music being made throughout the summer. So I would probably lean with the exciting rookie, the unknown of that. But hey, Demario Douglas also has 9 targets in 2 of his last 3 games, 11-plus PPR fantasy points in both of those efforts. Led the team in receiving in 2 of those 3 weeks as well. Again, while I think Jalen Polk could be the more exciting ad, if you need something that you can kind of bank on a little bit more, Demario Douglas has been moving those chains with ease. So I do like to see both these guys. And again, though, we did see 6 and 7 targets for Jalen Polk these last 2 games. Hasn't done much with it, but I don't want to hold that against him. He was on the field for all 60 of the snaps. That's important that the rookie has ascended now above that gross rotation, no KJ Osborne and all that gross stuff going on. So ultimately, Polk, the more upside play, Douglas, the kind of floor play. Both of them intriguing here with Drake May taking over. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by
subscribing below.